Welcome to Live Breathe Film, episode 83. You're here with Corey, Doug, and Murph. Thank you for joining us. Today we'll be sharing our thoughts on Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 and how it stacks up to other trilogies in the MCU and beyond in the comic book world. We'll also talk about its box office opening weekend. But before we get to that, let's close out our winter-spring box office pool. So it is official. I mean, it was basically official in our last episode, but it is 100% official now. Corey is our winner. His money has been given to him via AMC gift card, $50. Congratulations, Corey. Corey's first win, and my first loss. So, Doug, you're see what you can do this summer.
Just a perpetual loser over here.
You're very much a second place guy in the box office pools. It's where you ended up today. I went from first to last, and you stayed in second. But yeah, yep. Corey.
Always a bridesmaid, never a bride over here.
That apparently in our box office pools. But yeah, Corey ended up number one. I stopped counting the box office as of this weekend with transitioning to the summer with 694 million. Doug second with 635, and me with 405. Yes, 405. So a massive 200 million plus down from second place. Some of my movies are still making some money. Doug's, yours are basically done at this point, and Corey's still making money from Super Mario Brothers, the movie that single-handedly got him first place. I said to I was looking at the stats. If Doug had taken Super Mario Brothers with the number one pick and Corey took Ant-Man with the number two pick, it would have completely changed the game. It would have ended up being Doug in first place, me in second place, and Corey in third place. That's just how big Super Mario Brothers was. So that was an unfortunate pass on Doug's part, but I understand why he took the MCU movie. We thought it was going to be huge, kicking off Phase 5 and the big villain for Phase 5, but ultimately it performed like an Ant-Man movie, and not even as good as the second one. Largely, in my opinion, due to quality. Also, some superhero fatigue, but we'll talk more about super fatigue in a little bit when we get into Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. But yeah, Corey, yours was interesting in the fact that of your 8 movies, half of them combined made $30 million. Two of your movies each made $2 million. One made $9 million in Beau is Afraid, and Titanic's re-release $15 million. But you did have some solid. Cocaine Bear was a breakout hit. It was, I think, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it was the 7th biggest movie of the movies that we were tracking from February through the end of April for those 3 months. So that was a solid pick. Air was the about the 10th or 11th biggest. So that was a solid pickup. That was made $50 million as of now. But man, Super Mario Brothers movie, $520 as of now, and it's only going to continue rising. It had its biggest drop this past weekend with Guardians of the Galaxy opening. It dropped, I think, 55%. So the only thing that could beat Chris Pratt is Chris Pratt. But yeah, it should probably end up making around $575 million. So you guys were right with thinking it'd make around $600 million. Incredibles 2 will still be the biggest animated movie, but Super Mario Brothers will be number 2, which ain't too shabby. Um, all right. Next up, we've got. Sorry, I just saw something pop up on Box Office Mojo. Oh, there's a. Never mind. Pretend I didn't talk. Um, let's get back to the analysis. Sorry, I lost my fucking page. I should have duplicated it.
Big weekend coming up this weekend for summer pool. If we're gonna be popping over there pretty soon. Book club opens this weekend.
Big movie. Money
Big,
maker.
big movie. Big movie.
Big dollars right there.
Big muns coming for Corey this weekend. Um, but yeah, Knock at the Cabin was a little disappointing. Only like 35 million, but yeah, you killed it with Super Mario Brothers movies. It was one of those movies like Top Gun Maverick, Spider Man No Way Home, that just give you the win. Um, and I was gonna say Avatar, but Doug's draft didn't go too great after Avatar: The Way of Water.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it wasn't one that you could just like. This is the only movie I needed to draft.
Yeah, no, especially with the like adjusting the way that we did the box office
Yeah,
because
yeah,
there
you
were,
couldn't just like draft it and then just be like,
and
I'm
it,
done.
yeah, just take fucking 7 art house movies. Um,
Because Top Gun Maverick, like you could have done that and still won.
yeah, basically,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
there's like enough other popcorn movies where that happens. I mean, that's how I did win single handedly with No Way Home. Um, was just from that one movie. You had a tremendous draft in that one, um, similar to this one where you had a fucking great draft, but ended up being number two just because of one movie. But Doug, we'll go into yours. 635 million. So Ant-Man and the Wasp was your first round pick. It was a disappointment ultimately. It was the highest grossing movie that you did pick and was the second biggest movie of the season. However, you had the number one pick and you should have picked Mario over
Yep.
Ant-Man. Had Corey pick Ant-Man at number two, it would have been the right pick for number two. It just would have led to a very different result for him. Creed 3 overperformed fucking significantly. That was the fourth biggest movie of the season, with 156 million. Then you had Scream 6 as your next pick, and it was the fifth biggest movie of the season. 65 even made it $30 million. Who the fuck would have thought?
Really? Wow.
Yeah, it looked like complete garbage and eked out 30 million. Dungeons and Dragons was a solid sleeper for you, 90 million. So that was the movie right underneath Scream 6. So you like had a lot of like fucking bangers in a row. The second, fourth, fifth, and sixth biggest movie. You had all of them. Then you also had Renfield, which kind of bombed. But at that point, we were dealing with a bunch of shit to pick from. 17 million. The Covenant, which is now around 15 million, and Somewhere in Queens, which was another one of those like $1 million movies. Maybe
Somewhere in Queens is the Ray Romano one, right?
correct. I'm seeing what it. Yeah, 1.5 million. So it didn't do. It did a little bit worse than two of Corey's movies. Moving on, and A Good Person, which both each made $2 million. But yeah, Doug, like overall, you had the best fucking draft. So kudos to you. And then me, I just had a shit draft. It started with my number one pick, being Shazam. Or no, sorry, John Wick, which was a good pick. It was the third biggest. I had the number three pick. But then I picked Shazam with my back to back pick, and Shazam bombed and made less than Cocaine Bear did. It's going to end
That's
up
crazy.
Evil Dead is going to be passing it. Air can possibly pass it. Right now it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
I think
6,
Air is due on
7,
digital
8.
soon.
Yeah, Air is coming out on Prime soon.
Yeah, right now
Maybe this
Shazam.
week.
Shazam's the 8th biggest right now. Evil Dead is absolutely passing it, which I also had. Air probably won't pass it, so Shazam will probably be the 9th biggest. And I drafted at the 4th, so that fucking sucked. Only 56 million or 57 million. Evil Dead was nice, 55 million to get that from a fairly later pick. 80 for Brady. We talked about how I overpicked that one. Somehow made more than Knock at the Cabin, which was drafted right around the same time, but there were plenty of movies that I should have drafted before, as Doug had stated in our last episode, such as Dungeons and Dragons, Air, Cocaine Bear. Those were, I think, the 3 movies that I should have drafted before it. Pope's Exorcist did okay.
Pretty well, right? Yeah.
Actually, no, it really did kind of shitty. 19 million.
Really?
Magic Mike, 26 million. I think it just did good in comparison to what I was expecting. I wasn't even expecting like $10 million. Are You There? God, It's Me, Margaret was definitely my biggest bomb. That is at 13 million. Champions only made 16 million. So I just had a very bad draft, with the exception of John Wick Chapter 4 and Evil Dead Rise. So yeah, that's basically how the spring turned out. Any last thoughts on it, the winter spring, or shall we move on to summer?
Yeah.
Nope. Just congrats, Corey, on the win, and
Thank you.
glad that the streak of Murph has ended.
It was a good one, but the torch has been passed, and yes, congratulations, Corey. I'm fucking still salty you picked Mario. I was fucking like, I'm gonna have it at 3. They're not gonna take it. I should have known you were gonna take it, Corey. I knew fucking Doug was taking Ant-Man, but I should have known you were gonna take Mario. Because that would have been such an easy win.
Yep.
But it was fun to see something different happen. But yeah, let's go into summer, where you are currently dominating in the box office pool. So far, there's been one movie released that is out. It is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and it opened with $118 million. So you've got that, while Doug and I are both at 0. I will be at 0 for the entirety of May. I don't have a movie coming out until June. Doug will be at 0 until Memorial Day weekend, when The Little Mermaid opens. But Corey, you are going to have a massive lead on the two of us by the time Little Mermaid opens, because you've got Guardians of the Galaxy 3, another 2 weekends of that, along with this opening weekend, which we'll dive into further in a little bit. You have Book Club, The Next Chapter, opening this coming weekend. Not expecting fucking crazy money, but I mean, it's totally possible. It could be a $50 million movie.
Yeah.
That's around what the first one made, right?
It was, I think close to 60.
It was even better. It was close to 70. It was almost 69 million.
Wow.
So we'll see if it can duplicate the efforts of the original. And then you have Fast 10 opening next week. So it's going to be interesting to see just how high you are by the time Memorial Day weekend hits, and really where you're at the end of May. Because by the end of May, that would be when we'll really have the full runs for Guardians, or the bulk of the runs for Guardian, Fast, and probably even Book Club. Yeah, let's look at Guardians. 118 million. I would say it is below what we were all expecting. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1 opened to 94 million. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 opened to 147 million. So this opened basically right in the middle. With inflation, it is below Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1 as well. Does have the same A cinema score, so it'll be interesting to see if this one has some legs compared to the Marvel movies of late, the MCU movies of late, which have kind of cratered during its second weekend. There's been a lot of like 60 to 70% drops as of late. But with that A cinema score, hopefully that won't be the case. We'll talk more about our thoughts about the movie and what we think it will lead to box office wise when we get into our future presentation, which is strictly talking about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 and comic book trilogies. But I don't know, Corey, this was your number one pick. You got Fast coming out in 2 weeks. That was your second pick. What are your thoughts so far? How you feeling?
Definitely a little nervous, at least with Guardians, because I feel like it's underperforming because of the reason what we just said, and then also I think like superhero fatigue. I think is a part of it. So I'm a little worried about where it's going to land. And then Fast, I'm just worried because I feel like movies that normally make money aren't really a surefire at this point. So I'm not even sure if I can expect Fast to make what I was originally expecting when I was picking it.
Yeah, we have so many long running franchises this summer. Like, while Guardians is only the third entry, I mean, they were also in two Avengers movies in big roles. So you really could say and they had the holiday special. We're also in Thor: Love and Thunder for a very little bit. So, like, there's been a lot of movies with them. Then we've got Fast is its 10th main line entry, 11th in the series. Insidious, fifth movie in that series. Transformers is the seventh movie in that series. Um, Flash is, I don't know what in the DCEU, how many there's been at this point, um, along with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which is 3, 4, 5, 6. I think this seventh Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movie. Granted, this is an original one. And then we've got, with me, if we want to count Spider-Man, it's just a normal Spider-Man movie. It's the third, fifth, eighth, ninth, 10th Spider-Man movie. Plus, you could throw them in Avengers and Civil War, and then that's like the 13th Spider-Man movie. Seventh Mission Impossible movie, fifth Indiana Jones movie. So a lot of these series are long in the tooth. So it's going to be interesting to see which ones people still are interested in. There aren't a lot of new franchises that any of us drafted, or I guess Meg 2 would be one of them. And then Equalizer is only its third entry. Otherwise, yeah, everything's basically an original movie. Oh, and sorry, a book club. The next chapter is only the second installment.
Yep.
But yeah, everything's either long running or like a new thing, or like an adaptation of something. Like, we're getting our second chance of doing the Haunted Mansion. Things
I
like
heard
that.
some crazy stat that, like, out of all the movies this summer, there was only like 4 that weren't based on like pre-existing IP
That's
or
disgusting.
some crazy, yeah.
Looking at Corey's, I believe the only one Corey has talked to me is Rudy Gilman Teenage Kraken based on anything?
No, I don't think so. I think it's original.
Fact check it. Sounds like it could possibly be a book.
I thought it was original. It was an original, but
It looks like it.
Was it Ruby Gilman?
Yeah.
I hope it's based on a book.
It looks like it actually is an original.
Yeah, I think it is original.
Because I was basing that pick on past performance of their movies.
Okay, got it. So you have two no like nothing IP related. Doug,
Do I have any?
everything. No, you have one. You have Elemental. That's not based on anything. Everything else is based on something. Oh, and Oppenheimer. So you have two as well. Um,
So it's
and
got to be more than four, but I heard it's like a low number.
I have two originals as well. No Hard Feelings and Strays, two R-rated comedies. Everything else is based on something. So yeah, 6 of our 24 movies are not based on an IP. Um, but you're probably like talking about the bigger blockbusters. Like they're not. They're probably not looking at like the R-rated comedies, maybe, or like the R-rated horror movies.
Yeah, I don't know where this stat came from. It was just like a shocking number of movies were pre-existing IP.
Yeah, no, I mean it's definitely gross. The amount of sequels and adaptations and whatnot. But
I've got the Guardians dailies up. I know that I don't know how they're official, right? Or does dailies count
yeah, how'd Monday
as official?
and Tuesday do?
Monday's 8.9 million, and then Tuesday's 11.
Well, Tuesday's always higher than Monday because cheap movie Tuesdays.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Um,
11's pretty good. I mean, that's pretty. That's not a huge fall
well,
off for weekday numbers.
yeah, while people are still in school,
Yeah.
can you look at like a past entry, like a May movie, a kickoff summer movie? Um,
If you can give me one.
look at Iron Man 2. That is the most comparable box office um, for a Marvel movie that opened in May, the first weekend in May.
Uh, that
Iron Man.
Monday was 9 million. That Tuesday was 8.
Okay, and that was a movie that opened with 128 million and ended with 300 and like 12 million. Um, I mean, I think we're thinking this movie will make somewhere around 300 million.
Yeah.
Um, the first one made 333. I don't think it's gonna be able to. It's not gonna be able to replicate the legs of the first one, just because the first one was the last movie of the summer, last big movie that came out in the summer of 2014. So it was able to just dominate the remainder of August, going into September. While Guardians has competition, not this weekend, but the following weekend and every weekend after that. Um, but hopefully it will have enough legs this weekend. But yeah, it's definitely not making the 370 something that Guardians 2 made. Um, but what are our thoughts on why it made less than second? I was seeing, in my opinion, less hype for this one, despite the fact that I thought the trailers were killing it.
I don't think the
Um,
marketing was as solid.
I've been hearing that, but I thought they were some of the best trailers
The
that
trailers
the
were good.
MCU have put out.
The trailers were
Um,
good. I think like the overall marketing was not as in your face as the other entries. That's what I
okay,
think. It seems like that they didn't spend as much money in those channels this time around.
gotcha. Another thing I was thinking was I don't think it was great that it followed up both Thor: Love and Thunder and the holiday special.
That definitely hurt it for sure.
Um, so those were both two mediocre outings. Not
And
well, the
Yeah.
holiday special wasn't exactly mediocre. It just was like nowhere near as good as the first two movies or
Ant
their
Man. I mean, I
Avengers
think Ant Man
appearances.
affected
And
it too.
yes, following yeah, great point. Following all the a lot of the Phase Four and Ant Man. Um, probably had a big impact on it. People are definitely losing faith in the brand um, and superheroes in general. I mean, as we just talked about, Shazam. I mean, that was a movie that went like made like half as much as the first one a few years ago. That was a well liked movie. Um,
And I find it so weird because, like you said, the cinema score is an A. The reviews like across the board are very very positive, and then the movie's just not performing where it should be. It
Doug,
doesn't add
do you
up.
have any thoughts?
I mean, I think it's just been It's been a while from the second movie to the third movie.
Another point. Great
Good
point.
point,
Six
yeah.
6 years. But Doctor
Yeah,
Strange 1 and 2 had a very similar 6 year mark, and it made
but Doctor Strange,
more than doubled the first one's opening weekend.
Doctor Strange had an insane amount of hype going into that movie, whereas there was no hype going into Guardians of the Galaxy.
It's so weird.
It had that hook, like multiverse.
Yeah, and
Yeah, the
people
multiverse hype. People were
thought
like,
so much
Fantastic
more was
Four.
going to
It's gonna,
happen,
yeah.
But yes, Guardians didn't have a hype other than it is James Gunn leaving the MCU. It's the end of the trilogy. That was really the only selling points they had for this movie. You really need a hook, as we've talked about in our text messages lately. Flash, you got a big fucking hook with Michael Keaton coming back, rebooting the DC.
I just don't know how much people care about
universe.
Michael Keaton coming back.
Some people do.
I know you think that people do. I think less people care about it than you think.
I'm not convinced either. I hope a lot of people do.
Batman was the 5th biggest movie of all time when it came out.
Yeah, that was in 89.
Spider-Man was the 5th biggest movie of 2002, and No Way Home
It's been
was
a lot
fucking massive.
longer.
It's 13 years. It's not that much longer in the grand scheme of things.
When you think about that whole age group that's younger than us that don't give a shit about Keaton.
Yeah, but correct me if I'm wrong, I think it opens Father's Day weekend, so that would be a big weekend.
It does open Father's Day weekend.
A lot of fathers probably are going to want to see Michael Keaton as Batman.
And if you have your birthday that weekend.
Yes, as two of our co-hosts do. I think it's got a hook and it's going to make a lot of money.
I hope you're right.
Spider-Verse is just a sequel. The only thing that's different with that is it is animated and it is Spider-Man. Spider-Man and Batman are basically the bulletproof superheroes. As long as you put out a somewhat quality movie, it will make bank. And then Blue Beetle, I think, has somewhat of a hook, but I'm not sure how much of it really it has.
I don't know what to. Yeah,
in the fact that
I have no idea.
It's the first Latino superhero, like a movie based on an entirely Latino cast. I think that differentiates itself, similar to Black Panther and Shang-Chi, or Wonder Woman, and Captain Marvel, how they were the first to do something that does typically lead to bigger box office. I'm not saying it's going to be making the money of Captain Marvel, Wonder Woman, or Black Panther. At best, it could make maybe Shang-Chi money, which was probably deflated because of the pandemic, but it ended up making
400 and something, right?
No. Worldwide. Domestic made 224. I would say that's best case scenario for Blue Beetle. I also wouldn't be surprised if it makes the 60 million that Shazam 2 makes.
Yeah.
But I think it has somewhat of a hook.
I don't think it's making Shang-Chi money. I think that's probably I'd be shocked if it made Shang-Chi money.
Yeah.
I think realistically in the hundreds.
And because it's a DC EU movie, it also has a tougher time. I mean, how many of them have made over 200 million? Man of Steel, Wonder Woman, Batman vs Superman. I think that's it.
Aquaman.
Yeah.
Yes, Aquaman. I think that's it. Wonder Woman 1984 would have had it open at a normal time, but most of them make under 100 million. Birds of Prey, Suicide Squad, both of them pandemic related to varying degrees, day and date with Suicide Squad or the Suicide Squad. And sorry, Suicide Squad 1 made over 300 million. That was actually one of their biggest. Weird, I know. But Shazam 1 and 2, both on the lower side. I think there have been some other ones. Their Elseworld content like Joker and the Batman have been like their huge ones of late. Justice League bombed. That only made 100 something million. So I don't know. We'll see what happens there. But yeah, I think we've kind of went over the various reasons of why it made what it did. Do you think the heaviness of the film, like the fact that it looked darker in the trailers than the first two, and then some of the discourse around um, the animal experimentation and things like that had something to do with it, or do you think that's something that would be more of a after opening weekend thing?
I think it definitely deterred people in the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, it may have had an effect. I don't know if how big of a deterrent it was. I mean, there's certain people that probably didn't go to see the movie that would have if they didn't see the animal stuff being reported. But I really think it's just like I think there's no hook other than to see the end of the Guardians, and I don't know that people were like chomping at the bit as heavily as maybe we thought they were for to see that trilogy close out.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's possible the characters just weren't as big as we thought they were, and that the second one just opened at a very good time. I mean, they clearly like the people that see it clearly like it based on the cinema scores and like the audience scores on Rotten Tomatoes. But I'm fucking worried for the Marvels now.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I think yeah. I mean, I don't. It's part of a draft, so I don't want to like go too
Yeah,
deep into the Marvels. But
I think we're all thinking the same thing. It's going to
Mm-hmm.
be a massive disappointment for Marvel Studios.
yeah,
Um,
Yep.
it's the most disliked trailer in MCU history on YouTube, which is bullshit. That's
right.
just
I mean,
Is it
Captain
really?
Marvel had like all
yeah,
sorts of
yeah. They just
review
fucking
bombing and
review bombing, misogyny, and um,
Because of Brie Larson, right? Yeah.
yeah, because females can't be superheroes. Um,
yeah. I mean, that doesn't mean a ton to me, but I really do think there's a problem with that movie and that two of the main characters just haven't been
came from
haven't been in
streaming.
yeah, they're coming from TV shows. I think I think they're Disney's probably starting to realize it, but they're really like cheapening things by putting it on that streaming service.
They probably
Like, I don't
should
think
have.
it's good for their brand.
Yeah, like they probably should have had Secret Invasion as a movie,
Yeah.
and that probably would have been a really big movie.
Yep.
With the MCU characters that are in it that have already been in other movies, and then the actors, the quality of the ensemble that they have is just it's stacked.
Wasn't it
Um,
originally supposed to be a movie?
no, that was I think what you're thinking of is Armor Wars, how it was going to be a TV show, but now it's going to be a movie. But in
Which
reality, it's not actually going to happen.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, they've definitely hurt the brand a lot with the TV shows as well.
Yeah.
And man, I would like how much of a whiplash was the. I guess we're kind of really just going to get into Guardians in a second, but the whiplash between going from um, the holiday special to Volume 3, like
The
those
tone.
are the tone is so different. Like,
Yeah.
is the holiday special for kids? Like, who's it even aimed for? And then Volume 3 is like by far the darkest. I mean, it's arguably the darkest MCU movie. The only thing that I think you can possibly say is darker would be Infinity War.
Mm-hmm.
But man, oh man, um,
Yeah, this movie's pretty dark and almost at times unnecessarily dark. Like there were plot points that like
all right.
there was
Well,
no
we're
re-
going into the feature. Let's done with box office. Little Mermaid projected to make over 110 million Memorial Day weekend. That's solid. Fast is predicted somewhere over under 50, I believe. Or sorry, no, that I think 70 something was the most recent projection I saw for the opening weekend. And then, but we'll see how they end up performing. I haven't heard anything about Spider-Verse yet, but tickets are now on sale. Go buy them if you haven't yet. All right, that's enough for box office. Let's deep dive into Guardians. Doug, getting to your point, you were to preface this conversation about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, we'll talk about our thoughts about the film overall first, then compare it to other MCU trilogies and other comic book trilogies, and kind of what we think as a whole, how successful it was. But you had definitely the weakest opinion of the film. So go into what you were just about to say.
I was just getting into the fact that it was just at times I found the movie like unnecessarily dark with some of the decisions they made. I don't know if this is like full spoiler talk or how far, or if we just want to.
I think by the time we upload it, people should have seen the movie by now.
Okay, so full spoiler. Don't listen.
Yeah, spoilers if you haven't seen it.
If you haven't seen it. I mean, there's that whole scene where they just like counter Earth.
Yes.
Where there's just a whole planet inhabited by these animals that
genetically modified
to take on human characteristics, and they're just like, yeah, we're just gonna blow up the entire planet. Like, sorry, this entire planet full of inhabited animals that we like hung out and like kind of had like a little bit of like humor thrown in. Like, it was just kind of like, and now the planet has exploded and everybody's dead. Enjoy. It was just like stuff like that where I just thought, like, I get why they wanted to make Rocket's story dark, but like it just felt like sometimes they were veering into the dark for no like I don't know really how that served the plot at all.
Did they like? I know they blew up the planet, but did they blow up the entire planet? Like, was it gone? I don't think we ever saw it like completely gone. Obviously, like,
it seemed like that was the intent.
That was the intent, but we just saw them separate. At the end, while it was like still like being destroyed.
Because now, I'm thinking about it. I'm like, all right, we
don't know. We didn't see the full destruction of the planet, but we did see the full destruction of the
ship.
The ship that give me his name. I can't think of it. The
High Evolutionary
ship. Yeah, we saw that.
Yeah.
But I mean,
where they got all the animals and all the kids off of that.
Yeah.
Sure, that was. But the planet they were on, where they were like hanging out with that family and stuff, like.
Yes, they all died.
I mean, yeah. But like, why?
Why are we upset that happened, but we're not upset that Xandar blew up at the beginning of Infinity War?
Mm-hmm.
Where we had characters like John C. Reilly and Glenn Close and
because we didn't go and hang out on Xandar
for
like a while and like go hang out with this family.
Not in that movie. True.
In that movie, yeah. I mean,
it was originally filmed. Apparently, they were going to, and then they ended up not putting it in the movie.
Oh, really?
The Russos, did things with the toys. They did whatever the hell they wanted to do with the toys. I mean, I don't know why they blew up Xandar either. Like, what purpose that really served, other than to make sure that John C. Reilly couldn't come back for future movies.
I mean, Thanos needed to get the stone. He was going to destroy the planet, so it's a Thanos logic.
But yeah, that was just like one of those moments where I was just like, you just felt like dark, but then I also
is it because it's animals? Like, Star Wars kicks off with them blowing up an entire planet, like Princess Leia's home planet. Granted, we didn't meet anyone on the planet.
Well, this is why that was different. Like, they were like, hey, we're gonna hang out with this like woman's family or this animal's family who are like husband, their kids, and then like the next thing you know, like they just blow them up, and it's like
There
what the
was a
fuck?
shitty scene where you see people on the street. Gamora is like going past, and you literally see like this fucking family like blow the fuck up.
It was just like, why are we doing
Um,
this?
um,
I don't know that was like a problem that I necessarily had. I was just kind of like, wow, what? Like they're really like edging in the dark, but like it's beyond just like the rocket stuff. It's just like they just don't
James
care.
Gunn's a fucked up man. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm also wondering like I was starting to think after this movie like maybe I just don't like the way James Gunn writes, but I like Peacemaker, so I guess that's not.
that
have you
doesn't,
seen
yeah,
have you
that
seen
doesn't.
his other stuff from like 10,
I,
15 years
I
ago?
don't think he has.
All right. Well, maybe that's why I wasn't really surprised. I was kind of prepared for this because it was full on James Gunn, and that's really
Yeah,
what you got.
I think I was looking for. I mean, if we were just going into like overall things that didn't work for me about the movie, and by no means is this a bad movie. It's it's one of the best Marvel movies that have come out in a while. But I was
But you did. It was third of the trilogy for you, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
But like Thor, I mean, what have we had Marvel wise that has like
Love and
been
Thunder.
good recently?
Yeah.
I mean, the competition's been pretty low
No,
at the moment.
it's slim.
Um, but things that didn't work for me, the music kind of felt forced in a lot of places for me. Um, the character dynamic just like didn't feel right to me, but I felt that way about the Christmas special too. They're just kind of I don't know, they just don't feel I didn't really feel like the team aspect of it worked as well. And I thought the jokes have gotten kind of stale. Um, the what else didn't work
Do
for
you
me?
think was it the jokes got stale or there weren't enough jokes? Because there definitely weren't as many funny laugh out loud moments in this movie as in the past two.
No, I would say I didn't find myself laughing very often, and that may just be me and James Gunn's humor not connecting as well.
I mean, the
Um,
movie wasn't incredibly funny all the time.
and when I did laugh, it was the placement. I always thought was felt kind of weird because you'd come out of like a sad rocket beat, and then I would usually like go to like, haha, isn't this funny? And it was like kind of like I'm still sad about this rocket thing. Like, why are you trying to make me laugh?
Yeah, I mean that's an issue. It's more pronounced, I guess, in this one, but that's an issue in every MCU movie. Is quippy
Yeah.
fucking dialogue in the middle of fucking some horrible situation. Because these movies are like just as much comedies as they are like action movies, which is why they've been so successful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, so those were kind of some of the things that I would say didn't work for me. I mean, what worked, I thought, is the CGI the graphics were amazing. Um,
Yeah,
Definitely one of the
they
best
clearly
looking movies.
fucking put their work in on this one.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
it was really, really, really great looking movie.
I think
Um,
they skipped over Ant-Man and Quantumania. They went straight from Wakanda Forever, which they kind of didn't do that great on either.
Yeah.
And then really put all their time on Guardians.
Gunn just gets like I don't know if they're just I don't know what it is, but those movies seem to always wind up being the better looking movies. I mean, when you think about Guardians 2, that whole opening like Groot dancing scene, I remember at the time being like, "Wow, this is incredible!
I think
Like
a
this
lot
looks
of
really great."
I think a lot of it also, I don't know if it's the same guy for each movie, but his cinematographer, um, like they're always like really like successful cinematographers that he has on them, and I think like that's part of it with him, and then his vision. He's a great director.
I think a lot of it is mocap also. I don't know how much mocap they use outside of Guardians and
It's a good point.
Thanos.
It's a good point. They do a lot in these movies.
Because
Yeah, I heard.
Guardians and like Rocket, and the
Cosmo.
various characters in Cosmo.
Yeah, I heard for
Groot,
Cosmo,
etc.
which I
Yeah,
thought
Cosmo
was
was one.
shocking.
and Maria Bakalova was doing that. The various characters in Guardians and Thanos are like probably their best examples of CGI,
Mm-hmm.
and those are all mocap performances. But I don't know how much mocap they use in their other movies.
I think mocap is very, very, very expensive, like from end to end. I think it's very expensive. That's why they probably don't do it as often.
But that's probably your reasoning right there for the effects.
Yeah,
being
no,
as
it
good as
was
they
a
are.
great looking movie. All the acting across the board was really great, and I thought parts of the story worked really well and were really well written. It just didn't work for me completely as a complete picture. Um, I didn't really like the where it ended with right, not where it ended with Rocket. Where Rocket, I didn't really like Rocket's climax in the movie, where he finally like kind of showed down with the High Evolutionary. Um, just because I would have preferred like a more feel good, like killing him or something, like something where like it felt like Rocket got revenge. Instead, he did kind of like a Batman. I don't have. I'm not gonna kill you, but I don't have to save you, and flew away.
I mean, he
He
did rip.
arguably got something worse than death.
Yeah, he literally ripped his face off. Literally ripped his face off, and then we saw it in detail. It was like 2 minutes of like in
Yeah, I
depth.
mean, I was surprised that
We saw
they showed that.
In a PG-13
For
in a
the-
movie.
give,
PG-13
like-
movie.
Yeah,
That I mean, maybe it wasn't 2 minutes, but it was a long time to see that gory makeup.
Yeah,
you
it
saw
was,
the-
it was a more
Yeah.
it was a more extreme version of Aaron Eckhart as Two-Face in Dark Knight.
Yeah,
but
much
with
more
the
extreme.
entire face.
yeah,
And the mauling scene of Rocket attacking him right before his escape scene is just as horrifying. Like seeing the blood and like in High Evolutionary's like mouth and everything, and like just knowing that he is getting destroyed by this raccoon.
I really liked how, now that you mention it, I liked how that was shot because you didn't see the gore. It just kept cutting
Yeah, it was so many quick
away,
cuts.
and it was cutting to his mouth with the blood. Like I thought that was well received. Like it came across like really well. It was definitely horrifying.
Yeah, I mean, this was the most like intense PG-13 rated comic book movie since Batman Returns. Like I'm fully expecting like a lot of parents to be like, "What the fuck did I just get my kids into?" Like not expecting like even when Adam Warlock disintegrates the one dude into skeleton, totally reminded me of like Max Shrek in Batman Returns, or Joker using his handshake buzzer, Jack Nicholson in Batman '89, and turning into a skeleton.
I mean, what about? I mean, speaking of more gory or like kind of maybe disturbing the kids scene is the Chris Pratt when he like freezes in space at the
his
end.
face is all bloated.
Face bloats up.
His face like blows up.
Yeah, it didn't
like,
look like
they didn't even do that.
It didn't look like that in Guardians Volume 1.
No, or 2 Yondu. That's how Yondu dies,
Yeah, so
and like
Yondu
his face
dies.
doesn't like blow out. He just like ices up.
Yeah, it was pretty nasty looking.
And like I don't even know why they did that.
Who
to
was
just
the one
give
that
like
floats out in space in the first one? It is Quill, right?
I don't remember.
I don't remember.
Or maybe am I just thinking of Volume 2 in Yondu? I thought it happened in the first one. And they use their jetpacks to, I don't know. I'll have to go back and watch.
Yeah, this Quill doesn't have his mask or his jetpack anymore. He's just got the guns.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All he just had to get that fucking Zune player. If he didn't, he would have.
Such an unnecessary scene.
Would have been fine.
I didn't like that scene.
Yeah. Okay, so you've shared your.
Yeah, now you two go on your love fest.
So
for Guardians.
you thought you would rank them. I know you like 2 more than most people. Are you a 2-1-3 or a 1-2-3?
1, 2, 3.
Okay, you're
I think I think Guardians was the best when I guess James Gunn was like partnering with that. Well, both movie 1 and 2, he had other writers involved. Three's the
I
only one I think where he
think it
was by
was.
himself.
I'm pretty sure it was just one with Nicole Perlman, and 2 and 3
I
was
think he
himself.
had.
And 2 and 3 was himself.
I don't think so.
You can correct me. Are you looking at volume 2?
Yeah, I'm trying to.
All right, I will look as well. So you're not
Where's the
getting
best source to go?
dead air.
IMDb.
Wikipedia. Um, yes, it was just written by James Gunn, volume 2.
I thought there was another guy. Okay.
What?
Well, yeah. I guess I liked 2. I wasn't a perfect movie. Yeah. I mean, 1 I liked the best for sure.
Okay,
I thought that they were the best versions of the characters in that movie.
got it. Yeah, I hear you. All right, Corey. I would say you liked it the second most. So why don't you share your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean the movie worked really well for me as a whole. The only thing that just didn't really land with me was Adam Warlock. Uh, and the biggest reason for that is because I'm still sour about how he wasn't in Infinity War. Like that really was where he should have been, and because James Gunn got fired, it didn't happen. So he ended up being comedic relief in this movie, and he was fine. Like, and I think after the more that I thought about it, I think that you're going to see more of him going forward, and the
I
character
imagine.
will grow. I mean, he's supposed to be a child in this movie, so like his personality is not really there. So they're going to probably take that route with it. Um, but I was just expecting a lot out of that character for this, and I didn't get it. Will Poulter, right? That's his name. He was good. He looked the part, but it just ultimately didn't really land for me. He also really wasn't in a lot of it. So, um, but as a whole, like High Evolutionary was uh, probably I can't even think other than maybe like Thanos. I think he was probably the best villain out of any of the MCU movies. Maybe uh, Killmonger. Uh,
Yeah, I mean
I,
he's definitely way up there.
he's a top three at least, I think, for me. I have to see the movie again, but he was fantastic, and um, they didn't hold back with the character, and he had depth to him, and like his performance was just it was killer. Like he was just a great villain. Um, as far as the comedic points, I did like it. I liked how it ebbed and flowed with the comedy and the sad moments. Um, all of that felt really good to me. I There was a lot of shock value in the movie, especially in the very beginning. I don't know if it was because I tried to stay away from a lot of like the marketing that was out there, and even like the newest trailers. And I didn't really know what to expect going into it, how it was going to start. Um, so the first like 20 minutes of the movie like kind of caught me off guard. I was like, "Whoa!" It grabbed my attention very quickly. Um, and I thought everyone performed very well. I really liked the entire cast, and I liked how they split people up at certain points instead of ultimately killing off members of the team like they really could have. So I'm not. I have to see it one more time, but I think I think it lands just behind the first one for me. So it's 1, 3, 2.
Okay.
Might
Uh,
change.
I'm definitely the highest on the film. For me, I go the opposite. I go 3, 2, 1. Um, one being the lowest because it has to deal with too much of the setting up larger MCU bullshit, which is one of my gripes with a lot of the. It's one of my larger issues with MCU movies when it's not done as successfully. I didn't think Thanos was done very well in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1. Um, I didn't enjoy that character in any way, shape, or form until Infinity War, and then he was suddenly one of the best villains, if not the best villain in the entire MCU. Um, I thought they had a villain problem up until Phase 3, unless you include the Winter Soldier as a villain, in which case I thought basically every villain in Phase 1 and 2, outside of Loki, um, were pretty horrible, drawn, like horribly drawn out and not very like interesting to watch compared to someone like the High Evolutionary or Ego in Volume 2, where they have a lot more depth to them. Like Ronan was just, he was a fucking a Thanos lackey that like decides to see, like he wants the stone for himself. Didn't find that very like too crazy compelling. Um, and then but uh, it was definitely saw the first one, like just having the 5 characters. It's easier to like really get to know all of those characters. So I do agree with um, that line that you had said earlier about that, Doug. But I also agree, Corey. This one did a good job of splitting the team up into different groups and then getting them back in together at the end. It kind of did that whole like that Empire Strikes Back type of thing, where you split up teams into different groups and then eventually it gets back together. And then, but it gets back together by the end of the movie, where they're all together and teaming up for that fucking awesome um, hallway fight scene with everybody. That just one of the best action scenes and probably the best needle drop of the film, um, the Beastie Boys.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but ultimately, I thought the film had a perfect balance of um, emotion, action, uh, comedy, and um, I think there was a fourth element that I um, really liked about it. Um, but let's say those three. Um, so for me, the downside was the soundtrack. Um, I think that was the weakest aspect. I thought the Volume 1 and 2 soundtracks were much better by expanding the time frame going all the way into the late 2000s. It didn't have that cohesive feel that the first two soundtracks had. I get what you mean where you thought music seemed forced at points. I thought this, Doug, I did think kind of the same thing at times. Not so much where Quill would throw on his headphones, but when they'd like throw on a song, like when every time like they took the
Yeah,
ship
there was
off.
just times where it was like, oh, this is like what we do in these types of movies is play music. So
Yeah.
like we're just gonna kind of throw music on to throw it on. Like I thought it worked really well in some scenes, like the opening with Rocket and like the
Yes.
Radiohead. Like I thought that worked really well. But that was
Radiohead
there was a
worked
lot of other
great.
times where it
No,
didn't.
mm-hmm. Radiohead worked great. No Sleep Till Brooklyn worked great.
Yep.
Um, those were the two standouts for me, um, by far. Um, so I'd say the soundtrack was definitely the weakest aspect. Um, but I thought really diving into the, I guess, emotion and heart would kind of go towards the, well, um, overall, Yeah, I'd say emotion, heart, action, and humor were the like they had those four elements in like a perfect balance for me. I didn't find it too dark. I found that the darkness served the story, and dealing with each character's trauma that they've been through and their various um, issues and how they became like that found family with one another. Um, and then at the end, they didn't go the cheap route, which I was totally expecting, and expecting at least one or two members to die.
Yep.
But they all just went like they didn't all separate from each other, but they all chose to go in their own directions based on what was right for them as a character. Um, I like that a lot. I totally wasn't expecting Rocket to be in a coma for like the entire movie, um, about 75 to 80% of it. Um, but the flashbacks were some of the best stuff in the entire series. I connected with those three friends of his instantaneously. It was fucking horrible seeing their deaths happen so quickly. It might have been a little too spot on the nose when he has the Harry Potter Deathly Hallows Part 2 scene where he's going to the afterlife and it's like, oh,
Hmm.
you're not quite done yet. Go back.
Yeah.
And blatantly saying to Rocket, like, this has been your story all along. Like, all right, we know James Gunn, like you've said it a million times, like in the press, that like Rocket was your secret protagonist. Don't fully buy it. Um,
I mean, it's been Quill
it
for
was
one and
Quill.
two, and then
It's
it
been
switched.
Quill. It's been Quill the entire time. You started the trilogy with Quill, and you literally ended with the end scene with Quill and saying the legendary Star Lord will return. Um, Quill is your protagonist. Um, Rocket might be the reason how they all got together um, and worked as well as a team, um, and probably will be a much better leader than Quill was,
Hmm.
but
Yep.
he wasn't the protagonist the entire time. Um, he was protagonist of this entry. Um,
I one other thing is I really liked how the movie was edited, especially with the flashbacks. I thought that was done masterfully. Like how they
yeah,
made the point of, Rocket not really being in the movie specifically for 80% of it, but it didn't really hurt the film
didn't
because
hurt,
you were
yeah, because
seeing.
he was in it in his
Yeah,
own way.
yeah, that was I really liked that.
Um, and I also enjoyed that they didn't go the easy route with having Gamora um, fall back with Quill. Like
Hmm.
this is a new world. It just shows like I mean it's kind of like a multiversal type of situation. Like something's not going to work out the way you want it um, in each situation. Like depending on what variables occur, you may get the girl, you may not get the girl. Um, when he when he finally connects with Gamora in the movie, she's already found her people with the Ravagers. Um, she doesn't fucking need the Guardians. While she ends up liking them all to varying degrees by the end of the movie, she's perfectly content going back with her people and being like, well, we probably had a good time when we were together, but it's not us anymore. And Quill accepts it, which I think is cool. And I didn't expect him to end up going back down to his grandfather. I thought that was a nice touch since that's where the series began.
Hmm.
Was with him
It's the same
with
actor,
his
right?
mom
Who
dying.
played?
Yeah, same actor aged up. Um, Going back to him, I thought that was a solid um, way to finish his story in this trilogy. I should have known. I should have known he wasn't going to die the moment they brought up the fact that he hasn't resolved that situation with his grandfather.
Yeah.
Once Mantis brought it up, also should have known he wasn't going to die when he was like the only person on the press circuit being like, "Oh yeah, I'd be back. I'd be down to be back for more Marvel movies." Um, while Zoe Saldana's like, "Get me the fuck away," and Dave Bautista's like, "I'm out of here." Um, but he's like, yeah, man, I'd love to be back, or I'm all about being back. But and I think Nebula's story ended. I think her arc throughout the entire series um, has been phenomenal. I
Could
think
you imagine if
her and
they,
Rocket probably had my favorite arcs.
on
You
that
know,
thought of Quill dying, like, could you imagine if like that's the way he went out, was going after the Soon?
Yeah, it
Oh my
would.
god.
I
I
mean,
was half
people die
expecting it.
in fucking stupid ways. I mean,
Yeah, but
it's like
it's just
texting and
like
driving. Like,
he
really?
survived so much shit, and then
Yeah,
like
and that's how
he
you
ended
go.
up he died because he was trying to save his Soon.
Yeah. But I've noticed my favorite Marvel movies are the ones with less comedy. Um, my top seven movies, well, my top five ones are, um, in no particular order, the two Cap sequels, the final two Avengers movies, and Guardians 3. Um, I would say all of those are lighter on the comedy.
Yeah,
Guardians 2 and 1 would be 6 and 7, and Iron Man, Thor Ragnarok, um, and what was my number 10? Um, I can't think off the top of my head what number 10 was. Um, or 7, Iron Man, Iron Man, Thor Ragnarok. Sorry, I'm just gonna look it up because it's gonna bug me if I don't. I have it written down. Uh, do, 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 do.
I was very surprised with the
Oh, and Spider-Man: No Way Home. That makes up my top 10.
oh, okay.
Really, Ragnarok and the first two Guardians and Iron Man are like on the, I guess, funnier sides, but and obviously they all have their elements of humor, but the darker stuff is I've gravitated more towards.
Mm-hmm. Um, I was surprised that we didn't get as much Kraglin. I thought we were gonna get a lot more of
I'm
him.
glad we didn't get any
I
more.
thought we still
I
got
thought we
like
got
a
just
good amount
enough.
of
I thought we got
craggling.
just enough of James Gunn nepotism. Um, we got his wife in the movie.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, that's true.
We got Nathan Fillion's face in the movie for once,
Oh yeah,
and
that was a big part.
he was very funny in it.
yeah. Nathan Fillion was a highlight. He was hilarious.
But yeah, and I mean, fucking Sean Gunn did more than enough work in this one between Kraglin and then he doing the mocap for Rocket
True.
and doing the voice work for the adolescent Rocket as well.
Oh really? I didn't
Yeah,
know that he did the voice work for that. Okay.
there are
Interesting.
three different voices for Rocket in this one. There's like a child one who I don't know like who did the voice for that. Then Sean Gunn did like the adolescent version, and then Rocket, and then Bradley Cooper
Bradley
did
Cooper.
like the later stages of the flashbacks and obviously everything else.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought we got enough Cosmo, just enough Kraglin. Um, we got the characters I wanted to see. And this was the most I ever like Mantis in a movie. I thought Drax was still hilarious. Um, so yeah, I this was one of my favorite like third entries in a trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we'll see what you guys think after seeing it a second time. Um, I mean, I was very high on it the first time, but I was just as high on it the second time.
We'll probably give it
Everything that hit me hard the first time hit me just as hard the second. Um, while something like when I go back and watch like Guardians of the Galaxy 1, for example, the jokes, it's so reliant on jokes and world building that it doesn't hit as hard as I expect this one to continue to hit in the future. And I definitely prefer James Gunn being a singular voice. Um, Doug, you made a great point about him being the sole writer on Peacemaker. Um, I I think James Gunn's a great writer,
Mm-hmm.
and I think the people that have the most success in this comic book world are the ones that write and direct all their material, um, to varying degrees at least. But I guess we can segue right in.
Maybe. I mean, people didn't like Thor: Love and Thunder, and that was a Taika written and directed movie.
Fair point. Ragnarok was better. Well, I'm sure
And
he had probably
that
had a
was
lot of
co-written, right? Ragnarok, or
Ragnarok.
he
He
had
was. I
other
don't even
writers.
think Tyke is listed as a writer on Ragnarok. I imagine he had a lot of improv that was put
I was gonna
into it.
say they probably like improv the shit out of it.
Yeah, but he's not listed as a writer on Thor Ragnarok. Um, so
That's
yes,
interesting. You don't get writing credits if you just like tell people the improv lines.
um, yeah,
Well, I guess like if you're the director and you're like, try this line or
yeah,
like say this.
yeah. Because I mean, you could tell it's Taika's humor in Thor
Yeah.
Ragnarok. So like he clearly was like his voice was still there, but I guess more so if you're doing an entire series, having like a writer, um, director really be consistent leads to a better series, and then that's what I want to pivot into um, comparisons to the other MCU trilogies that we've gotten so far, and what you think of this one in comparison to the others so far. We've gotten the Spider-Man Homecoming trilogy, the Iron Man trilogy, Captain America, Ant Man. I'm not going to count Thor because it's so disjointed, and we've already gotten four at this point. Nor will I count Avengers. So Guardians makes five trilogies. That's 15 movies of the 32 that have come out so far in the series. Um, 32 films in the MCU, and 15 of them come from these five series. How would you stack them up against one another?
I mean, I think we all probably would agree that Iron Man is probably on the bottom.
I would say
Well, no.
Ant
Well,
Man.
Ant
I would
Man
say
and
Ant
Iron Man.
Man is
Ant
on the
Man's the
bottom.
bottom. Yeah, I would agree
Um,
with that. And I haven't even seen the third one,
And
but
yeah,
I'm gonna agree just based on
Ant Man,
um,
then Iron Man. I
what.
forgot about Ant Man.
and Ant Man or Iron Man, and it's got some close competition with Iron Man just because Iron Man 2 and 3 are like I'm not fond of
But
either
one's
of
so
those movies,
good.
but one is so good, and Ant Man never had a movie that was so good.
Right, that's why I would put Iron Man above Ant Man.
Exactly.
I will say that three has grown on me. I watched it recently, and I was on TV, and it played a little bit better for me this
Okay.
time than years ago. I don't know why, but um, and then I think
What's left?
So that leaves us
what is it?
with
Captain America,
Cap,
Guardians, and
Guardians, or maybe were there only four trilogies? Because
Spider Man, you
oh,
have.
and Spider Man. You're right.
Spider Man.
Thank you, Doug. Yeah, because we've got two quadrilogies.
I mean, I would probably put um I would probably put for me, I would put Cap as two, Spider Man as three, and then one is Guardians. I think one has the best, or Guardians has the best trilogy,
Okay,
in
and
my
then
opinion.
Corey, your final one was it? Ant was four or five? Which was five and four? Ant Man or
Ant Man was five.
Ant Man was five. Okay, so we have
Or
the
Spider
same.
Man. Yeah, we agree on that. I forgot about that.
We have the exact same top five. I go Guardians, Cap, Spider Man, um, Iron Man, Ant Man.
Mm-hmm.
How would you go, Doug? And then we can get into why.
Yeah, I mean,
We know your bottom two. We know
yeah,
it's Ant Man as five, Iron Man as four,
I think I would do Captain America next.
Captain America is three.
I might go Guardian Spider Man.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Just because it's a hard one. I'm trying to struggle with the fact that I like the third one so much more than I like the third Guardians.
See, No Way Home has kind of fallen off since after the first viewing. I've watched it twice since then, and each time I like it less and less. I don't know why. I think it's just too beholden to the nostalgia factor.
My issue
Yeah, I don't
with
know what the
no
factor was.
my issue with No
for-
Way Home is the first like 25 minutes or so fast paced, and like I think it gets really good once like all the older villains get into the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even know if it's necessarily nostalgia, but their performances are so fucking good. Like Willem Dafoe gives arguably his best performance as the Green Goblin in No Way Home.
Mm-hmm.
Alfred Molina is just as good in No Way Home as he is in Spider-Man 2. But that first 25 minutes is very fucking clunky and rushed.
I mean, the whole story is kind of clunky, and nonsensical, and doesn't really hold up to any scrutiny.
Fair enough.
But it was such a fun ride. I don't know, like there's something about a movie where you're like got a smile on your face for a good chunk of it. That it was just fun. And I don't know if I could say that about Guardians, but upon reflection, I'm flipping Spider-Man and Guardians. So I'll give Guardians the first spot because the first Spider-Man movie, like I didn't really like that much.
That's me and the second Spider-Man movie.
I like the second Spider-Man movie, but I like the 3D Mysterio stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I like the Mysterio stuff, but I didn't like a lot of the stuff around it.
Yeah, the whole like going.
It was way
overseas
too fucking comedy, way too high school comedy for me.
Yeah.
I thought Homecoming did it much better. The amount of that, and Michael Keaton was great in Homecoming. Jake was great, and Jake Gyllenhaal was great in Far From Home. Best part of Far From Home. But yeah, that's my reason. And then for me, so Cap third for you. You're a big Winter Soldier guy, but not so much on Civil War and First Avenger.
Yeah. First Avenger, I don't like it really at all.
That's why it's number 3 for me. It's towards the bottom of my list of the
And
MCU.
then I didn't like Civil War as much as you guys did.
I'm the big Civil War guy. Like that's my favorite MCU movie.
Yeah, I thought the airport scene was cool at the time. I mean, now it doesn't. Now it seems kind of lame.
Oh, it's like the weakest part of the movie now.
But I remember at the time that was, I thought that was amazing. And then, especially that was our first Spider-Man in the MCU moment. But like what's his name? Zemo. Like I don't know, he didn't really do anything for me as a villain. And like I kind of wish they pushed the Tony. Am I blanking on the Tony Steve dynamic? I wish it kind of like went further and darker and like was more. I wish there was more to it. Like it felt like the idea was there, and then they had that battle at the end. But I just wish it was like built up a little bit more. I didn't really feel that conflict as much as I would have wanted to, and then Zemo like just didn't really do anything for me. Or my weaknesses with Civil War, but Civil War has great moments. There's some great scenes and action scenes in Civil War for sure. But yeah, Winter Soldier to me is the highlight of that series.
Yeah. Yeah, so for me, like what I was going to earlier with saying about like the having consistency with writer directors, if the Russo brothers directed First Avenger, like Cap might be my favorite series. Had the same writers for the entire trilogy, and for the final 2 Avengers movies. So all 4 Russo brothers movies are in my top 5 MCU movies. But they missed out on First Avenger, and the First Avenger is so far down my list. While the 3 Guardians movies are all in my top 7. So while the four Russo brother movies are all my top five. Um, so yeah, that's the reason for me with Guardians being number one and Cap being number two. I think the highs of Cap are higher than Guardians, um, but as a whole, the consistency of James Gunn as a writer director, um, I think makes it better overall.
It's yeah. I mean, it's interesting to me that this might be a little. This is a little bit off topic, but the Russo, just because you mentioned the Russo brothers and how that would have been great to have them in the first one, and maybe that would have changed things. It's still odd to me that they're like can't find success outside of Marvel.
It is. They're good with ensembles, and they haven't been doing ensemble work outside of because they're TV people.
Yeah,
Um, the movies that they've been doing have been one was a Tom Holland drama, um, and then they've done the Gray Man, which was a two or three characters basically,
And that was a
it
hit,
was two main
right?
characters.
two main
Yeah.
characters. I guess
I
maybe
mean, it
who
got
knows
people
what
watched on Netflix.
who knows what a hit is on Netflix. Um,
But it didn't.
but they
Critics didn't. No one liked it, or no one that I've saw that wrote anything about it said anything positive.
they're similar.
I thought it was garbage.
They're similar to Joss Whedon, TV writers that are great with ensembles, and they fucking crushed it when working with ensembles. They had the biggest ensembles of all the superhero movies. Um,
Are Marcus and McFeely still writing Avenger or Marvel movies?
no,
No.
so they did five movies. They did the three Cap movies and the final two Avengers movies. Um,
I'm sure they'll all come back together at some point.
yeah, and like the Spider-Man trilogy, like what do we had three other trilogies we talked about. Iron Man had two different directors. Um, it had John Favreau do the first two, and Shane Black do the third. Different writers throughout the series. Um, Ant Man, same director the entire time. The writers changed throughout. For all three movies, the writers changed. Um, no surprise that the best Ant Man is also the one that had Edgar Wright's original input, and then added Adam McKay of all people to the writing staff. Um, so no shock that the first Ant Man was the best. Had the same director, but writers changed throughout. And then Spider-Man trilogy, same director the entire time, but the writers were mostly the same. I believe the first one had um, some additional writers than two and three, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure if the director wrote any of film. John Watts. He wrote part of. He was a writer for the first one. He wasn't a writer for the second or third. But yeah, there was one, two, three, four, five, six writers for the first movie. Two writers for the second. They were two of the writers from the first movie, and then the same two writers from the second did the third movie. So it was a huge a lot of major collaborative effort on that Spider-Man: Homecoming, and then they stuck with just two of those six writers for two and three. But yeah, I think consistency of your writing and your directing pays dividends ultimately when making a trilogy. So things feel consistent, characters feel mostly the same. I know an issue for you is you thought the characters felt different. I thought the characters evolved, but they all grew throughout the series. If they were the same way they were in Guardians Volume 1, I think the movie it would have been a failure for this series because these characters went through so much and changed so much as people
Yeah, that's
throughout
not
the
what I
course
meant.
of the trilogy.
I meant more like they felt like kind of how we were talking before about how like Ted Lasso
Oh,
like
okay.
cartoon characters. Like these kind of started some of them
Gotcha.
started feeling more like
Gotcha.
cartoon characters.
Apologies for twisting your
No
words.
worries. Um, but yeah, just they all kind of felt a little cartoony to me. Whereas I thought they felt a little less so in the other movies. But I mean, they were very cartoony in the Christmas special.
Yeah.
So it definitely pulled back from
Yeah,
that. Thank God.
Corey, you had said you're never watching that thing ever again, right? Wasn't
No,
it?
never again.
I hated that thing.
Yeah, there was.
Werewolf by Night was so much better.
Yep, it was that. I mean, that I'll watch again.
I will
For
give
me,
the holiday special one more shot this coming holiday season.
it wasn't even that. I mean, it had Christmas stuff. All right, the biggest thing for me is I'm a Scrooge. I don't really give a shit about Christmas movies. They don't really do anything for me for the most part. Some do, the nostalgic ones, but I'm not a very festive person, so I don't really care. I like Violent Night, as of recently, but that's because it's David Harbour as Santa Claus, killing people, Die Hard style. But something like simple like that, like with Guardians, the characters weren't enough for me to really enjoy that, and the length pissed me off. It felt like it was like over in a second.
Yeah, it was real quick, and it only focused really on two characters.
Yeah, they were
Um,
funny. I mean, it had some great funny moments, but ultimately, there's not enough there for me to watch it again.
yeah. Um,
I
all
didn't even
right.
find it that funny, which is probably a problem.
Yeah, probably. Um,
Yeah, I would say like you should have at least found it funny.
yeah, I'd say that's a problem. That's what they were aiming for, and if you didn't get that, I'd say that's a problem. Um, all right, and then in comparison to other comic book trilogies, we've all decided that this is the best of the MCU trilogies so far. Where do you stack it up against some of the trilogies we've gotten outside of the MCU? For me, I guess I'll start since I've thought of this already. I would put it as number two after the Dark Knight trilogy and above Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy. Again, ones where it had the same director throughout and the same writer, at least writing some of it, um, if not all, in the case of some certain screenplays, where they kind of if you felt the ownership of the writer director, or at least the director. You knew the Spider-Man movie was a Sam Raimi movie. It just you can tell it's a Sam Raimi movie. Same with the Dark Knight trilogy and knowing it's a Christopher Nolan movie, and Guardians knowing it is a James Gunn movie. Um, but yeah, I would say Dark Knight is still my favorite trilogy, and the main reason why. Let's say I think I gave all the Dark Knight movies and all the Guardians movies 5 stars on Letterboxd. I would say the differentiator, if you need anything, is the fact that the Guardians trilogy is not a real trilogy because if you have not seen Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame,
Yeah.
you cannot go from Guardians Volume 2 to Volume 3 without being fucking lost. And that is a problem. It's something we haven't talked about at all, but it's something I've been harping on over the past.
We talked about it, but
yeah, we've been talking. I've talked about it in person with people over the past week. Can't be a perfect trilogy if people won't know what's going on in the third entry because they've missed out on so much stuff.
It's gonna be even worse now that for a trilogy you're gonna have seen the Disney Plus show.
Yeah, it's gonna be harder.
Yeah.
Guardians felt the most separated. Like
Yeah.
Volume 3 and Volume 2 kind of felt like they were their own self-contained thing, although Volume 3 had to deal with the fallout of Infinity War and Endgame. Volume 1 was the only one where it felt like it actually was like building the universe. But yeah, like there's just so much now that it's gonna be tough for anyone to be able to make a trilogy where you would like if you just want to watch those movies, you're not gonna be able to. You're gonna have to be like, sorry, you have homework to do before you get to watch this,
You have
like
to watch YouTube videos.
before part two or part three or whatever. Um, which
Yeah,
is
it's a problem.
annoying. Dark Knight trilogy, self-contained, beginning, middle, end, boom. Um, the Spider-Man trilogy did it to very. I didn't think it had a very complete and like a very definitive ending to the third one. I mean, they had plans to make a fourth one, but it still like works to a degree as a beginning, middle, and end. But that's where I'm at as far as trilogies go. I'm not gonna Wolverine if it actually felt like a trilogy would be high up there,
Mm-hmm.
but and then yeah, um, so yeah, those are my top three. Corey,
The only other one that comes to mind, and I get this, it's not even a complete trilogy yet, I guess. In one way it is, in one way it isn't, is the um what's it called? Hold on one second.
I don't know what is it.
Kingsman.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Kingsman was. I don't know why I was saying the gentleman in my mind, but Kingsman. So the first two I thought were very cohesive. I thought they were really good films in that universe. And then the third one was a prequel. I feel like ultimately we're probably going to end up getting a third one at some point because I know Taron Egerton wants to do it, and so does the director. Forgot his name.
Yeah, I'm blanking on it at the moment as well.
But I imagine that that's going to happen. And
Matthew Vaughn.
Matthew Vaughn, yeah. And I think that so far up until this point, even the prequel was solid. Like it added to that universe, and it was very faithful to the comic book. I wish I could say the same about Kick Ass, but that was, even though it's not a trilogy, but that kind of fizzled out too. There's been a lot that have fizzled out after the first one
Or the second one, yeah.
or the second one, yeah. So,
or ones that we never got a complete trilogy. If we got a complete Tim Burton, Michael Keaton trilogy, I have zero doubts that would be in my top three also. But we got Batman Forever, which now is its own separate universe. It's been removed from canon from Batman and Batman Returns.
Really?
The Flash is everything after Batman Returns. We're going straight from Batman Returns to the Flash. Batman Forever, it's its own universe. I think Batman and Robin is either its own universe or it's part of Batman Forever's universe.
Interesting. I did not know this.
I mean, with multiverse, you have characters that look similar, so that's the explanation for Alfred and Gordon being the same actors.
So they retconned it.
But they've retconned it similar
like
to Superman.
20 years later.
Yep, just like Superman 3 and 4. Going to Superman Returns to be the trilogy closer.
Wow. That's pretty crazy.
X-Men. If Bryan Singer, piece of shit, had done the third movie, it's possible that movie, like I'm not too high on the first X-Men movie, but X2 was awesome, and I imagine his X-Men 3 was going to be awesome.
Yeah.
That's something that could have been better as well.
Mm-hmm.
If Matthew Vaughn, if he stuck with X-Men, man, I love First Class, and Days of Future Past was really good, but I probably would have been even better with Matthew Vaughn, but that was like a quadrilogy also, with the young group of actors.
Mm-hmm.
But so where would you stack Guardians? Is it your number one or?
I think Dark Knight is still one. The Dark Knight trilogy. I think I agree with you on that. I'm trying to think of other
other trilogies.
of other comic book trilogies. Because there's
Yeah.
other trilogies, yes, that are better, but comic book trilogies, that's
Yes, exactly. There's definitely other
because
trilogies.
there's a lot that have just fizzled out at some point.
Yeah.
Kingsman was just one that came to mind because there's still potential that it could end on a solid note.
Mm-hmm.
Because even though it was a prequel, it was decent, and they're probably going to do a third entry at some point. I would imagine. Yeah, I'm trying to think.
I mean, I don't think they're Ghost Rider got 2 entries.
Matrix was original.
Fantastic Four got 2 entries. Yeah, I don't think there really is any other trilogies. There's like quadrilogies or 2 entries. Or crappy trilogies. What would be your third? Would it be Captain America?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Because
that would be my fourth one.
Because Spider-Man, looking in hindsight, I like those movies, but I wasn't in love with those movies, like the Homecoming trilogy.
Oh, well, I'm talking about the Raimi trilogy. That was my number 3.
Oh,
Not the Homecoming trilogy.
Raimi trilogy, I definitely am higher on now than I was in the past. I want to watch the third one again.
But as of now, so you got Dark Knight trilogy, tops, Guardians, and then Cap. Okay.
Yep.
Doug, how about you? I'm assuming you're going to go with Dark Knight trilogy.
Yeah, you had mentioned that you were surprised by some people in the superhero movie that they put in the top. That's their top trilogy. And so I had been thinking about that for a while of what would be mine, and yeah, it's definitely Dark Knight. So I think I'd go Dark Knight, Guardians. I don't know, I guess the Spider-Man, not the Sam Raimi.
The Spider-Man Home trilogy.
Yeah. And then maybe the Captain America.
Yeah, I had Captain America at 4. Also.
Yeah. So that's where I would go. But yeah, I guess we all have Dark Knight, which I guess it shouldn't be that surprising as our number 1.
Yeah, and then DCEU hasn't had a trilogy, right? Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
No, it didn't. I mean, Wonder Woman's
it's maxed out at 2.
Wonder Woman and Aquaman, and Wonder Woman 1984 was garbage.
Yeah, or if you want to pretend Suicide Squad that's 2. If you want to pretend, if you want to pretend that Man of Steel, Batman vs Superman, and Zack Snyder's Justice League is a trilogy, I guess you can. And that's the closest thing to a trilogy.
People do say
what
that.
What about Suicide Squad, Birds of Prey, and then Suicide Squad?
Oh, it's a Harley Quinn trilogy. That's actually a more fluid trilogy than the Zack Snyder one. Wouldn't be anywhere near my top 5 or probably even 10, but yeah.
It's a Suicide Squad sandwich.
Yeah, I definitely would put it above the Zacks. Would I definitely? I think I would put it above that. But we can have this conversation next year, and fucking Spider-Verse could be the number 1, potentially.
Could be. It's a high potential with me.
For you, yeah, very high potential. And then we've got potential with the Batman whenever the Batman Part 3 comes out in, let's say, 2028. Yeah, it would probably be 2028 or 2029. Jeez.
I don't know what this writer's strike is going to do to...
That's true.
Yeah, it's probably going to screw up a lot of things, especially for Marvel, because
yes, keep going.
it's going to screw up a lot of projects for them because they work so far in advance. I think the TV stuff is going to be affected more than the film stuff.
Well, the TV stuff they've been pushing back because they know they fucked up by putting so much out. So I think they have a lot in the can already that is like they have like 5 shows that are like
Basically
done. The movie side that they have a little bit more problems, but Deadpool, we're about to have a trilogy. That's another one that will soon be one. We had the Blade trilogy. That was one we forgot to talk about, and then we also we're gonna have a Venom trilogy soon. So we know that'll be high up on everyone's list.
Yeah, all ones that I would not put high up on my list. Blade also would have been there if the third entry wasn't garbage.
If the third entry wasn't garbage, yeah. I mean, it had different writers, directors for the first, or at least directors for the first 2, but that third one was just straight trash.
Deadpool will probably be one of them. It'll probably be another good comic book trilogy, I imagine, unless they really screw up 3.
Blade was the same writer for all 3.
Yeah, different directors.
And then the writer directed
the third one, right?
The third one. And he was also the co-writer on Batman Begins and David S. Goyer I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
He was the co-writer on Batman Begins and then involved with the story for Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises.
I feel like Trinity was his first movie that he directed.
It was his second, but I would have thought the same thing. He did something called Zigzag in 2002.
That doesn't count.
It was a drama with John Leguizamo, Wesley Snipes, Oliver Platt, and Natasha Lyonne.
All right, I guess it counts. I thought it was going to be like
I thought it was like some short film or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's I think that kind of wraps things up then. So yeah, we'll be back in a week or 2. Talk more film, but that's all we got for today. Thank you again for listening. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Make sure to subscribe on Spotify, Apple, etc. And as always, this has been Corey, Doug, and Murph at Live Breathe Film. We'll see you again next time, film fans.
Bye.
There you go. Had to get that bye in there.